Welcome back to the Matt Return podcast. I'm your co-host Zach Allen,
And I'm Kaleb Boyer.
and we're back after I think a couple weeks now without filming. I think our last one was right after the national championship, but this one is not going to be totally about wrestling. We have uh, Bo Nickal fighting this weekend on the UFC 300 card, and then Bo Bartlett. I guess that's about wrestling. Announced that he's coming back to the team. So this week is going to be the Bo podcast for both of them. Um, but I think the more relevant one, or the more exciting one, in my opinion, is probably Bo Nickal on the UFC 300 main card. This is going to be his fifth UFC fight. Caleb, what do you see there?
Well, I think Bo's been pretty dominant so far in his career. I know it's a really small sample size, but I'm sure that plays a factor. And then I think he's a pretty marketable personality. He's always on Twitter, always stirring things up. I know he did after the finals with he made some comments about the less than stellar commentary in his opinion. But what do you think?
I think Bo is a minus 3,000 favorite. I was looking at who's favored throughout the whole card, not just the main card, but he's minus 3,000, which is a lock, and I think it should be because the guy he's facing, Cody Brundage, is 4-5 in the UFC. That's including on the Dana White Contender Series, and on the flip side, Bo hasn't had one of his fights go outside the first round. He hasn't had a fight last more than 3 minutes long. And so I think this is going to be just another Bo Nickal domination. I think he last fought in July of last year, so it's been a while since he's been in the octagon, and I think as a wrestler coming out of college and transitioning to a fighter, uh, I'd look to see if how his striking is doing because wrestlers can take anybody down to the ground, but if you have a wrestler that can also throw hands and be a great boxer, that's probably the most dangerous fighter that you can have in the UFC. So I think Bo Nickal, it's not going to last outside round one again. I know Cody Brundage won his last fight, but I just think he's been too much on a tear to have this be even close. But yeah, I think really the thing I don't know if I agree with is him being on the main card of this absolutely stacked card. UFC 300 is, at least in the time that I've been watching the UFC, it's easily the most stacked card I've ever seen. Dana White's been talking about it for like the last month now. 12 former and current champions, you know, more than several fighters that are in the pound for pound rankings, fighting on this card. So there were a lot of options for who to put on the main card. And to be honest, I was kind of surprised that this fight. I mean, it is the first fight on the main card, but I was still a little surprised that it was, considering, the talent that is on the card. Not even the prelims too. Like on the prelims, you have Aljamain Sterling, who just defended his belt like 3 times before losing to Sean O'Malley, and then you also have Jiri on that card too, who's a very experienced fighter. He hasn't had a lot of UFC fights, but that's because he's had like 30 other fights and other promotions. And so I think that was the surprising part of this. And I can see why the UFC would make this fight on the main card, because I think Bo Nickal is probably their most exciting prospect that isn't in the rankings yet. And so I can see why they did it, but I don't know if I agree with it, considering it's also most likely a first round knockout for Bo, or maybe not a first round knockout, but a knockout or submission for Bo. Um, but it is what it is. He has another chance to prove himself, and I think he will be ranked if he wins this one, and it'll just be another stepping stone. But I just went on like a 3 minute long tangent about that. So, I mean, do you think it should be on the main card? Is it just me that I think it? If I were to place it, I'd place it as one of the higher prelims.
Well, if it's just gonna be like, a quick match, I don't know why it would draw the attention of being on the main card. But I mean, people that get paid more than I do made that decision. So I mean, what do I know? So
Yeah, I think it's just because Bo is just a very exciting prospect. He has had a couple submissions, but he's also had a couple knockouts with his hands where I think the last one against Woodburn, he faked a takedown and the guy's guard dropped and he just caught him with a hook. And I'm personally very excited to see how his striking has improved since last July, whether he should be on the main card or not. But moving on to the other Bo Bartlett, he announced this week that he'll be returning for the 2025 or 2024 to 2025 wrestling season. What do you think? Obviously, the national runner-up this past season. What do you think? His return provides for Penn State.
well, you have a guy who's obviously number one going into the very last or the Big Ten championship final at 141, and then he suffers his first loss. Later goes to the national title, suffers another loss, both to Jesse Mendez. So I think this is a guy who obviously he's going to compete for the national title. He's going to be. I don't know if he'll be number one out of the gate. Probably not. He'll probably be two behind Mendez. But I just think that this gives Penn State like another chance to, I guess reload, because you can have Van Ness come back at 149 and have Tyler drop back down to 141 and redshirt. Gives him more like that, like an entire year to get prepared to go back down to his original starting weight from this past season. And essentially you're not going to have any gap from next season until the season after, because now you have two All-Americans. Well, you have an All-American waiting in the wing and an All-American coming back from injury, and a national runner-up at 141. So, you got three All-Americans in two spots right there. So it's a good problem to have, I guess, is a very long-winded way to say that.
Yeah, I think he also balances out the uncertainty that is kind of in the back half of the lineup with, Aaron Brooks, Bernie Truax leaving now. Carter, if I had to guess, is probably going to leave. I think he doesn't like school anymore. And then, Greg could leave. He could come back. So really the only solidified person that is going to come back right now in the last five wrestlers is Mitchell Messenbrink. So in my opinion, I think Bo Bartlett coming back along with, Levi still there. Like you said, Shane coming back. Aaron's Nickal is going to come back. Braden Davis is going to come back. It just provides a lot of consistency and a lot of talent too, because he's been the runner-up now. He was third, I think, the year before. He's had 50 wins in his last two seasons. Ever since he went down from 149 to 141 after Nick Lee left, he's really come into his own, and he'll have another chance to prove that, potentially win a national title or a Big Ten title and get revenge on Jesse Mendez after last season. But yeah, that's all from us. You can watch Bo Nickal fight Cody Brundage at UFC 300 on ESPN Plus's pay-per-view. And we'll be back next week previewing the Olympic trials coming up next weekend in State College. But for now, that's all from us. I'm Zach Allen again.
And I'm Kaleb Boyer.
Peace.